see some old recycled wood here. Hello and welcome to the Deaf Kiwi Diversity Series. My name's Nadia and this is my sign name. And what's your name? My name's Peter. My sign name's like this. And why is that your sign name? Well, back when I was younger, I used to have a different sign name like this, which was quite common for other deaf Peters. And then when I was working at the deaf school in 1990 in the residential village, working with the students there, as a group, we went to Great Barrier Island for the weekend. And it was a boat trip to get there with the staff and 24 students. It was a lovely sunny day, but very windy and my hair got blown all over the place. And I was desperately trying to pat it back into place. And the students noticed that. When we got back, they gave me this sign name, Peter. And so this is my sign name now, and this old one hasn't been used since. Oh, well, it's lovely to meet you, Peter. And so what's the story of your upbringing? Well, I don't think I was born deaf. My mum thinks that I got a high fever when I was sick. And that caused me to go deaf when I was a baby. So I went to Kelston Deaf School as a boarder, but I would go home to the farm every weekend. And I have always loved carpentry, working with wood on the farm when it was raining and we were stuck inside. I would make lots of different things out of wood. And from a very young age, maybe 8 or 9, right through actually the rest of my life, I've always loved working with wood. And do you have multiple skills, carpentry, and then a number of other things as well? Yeah, quite a few different things. On my father's farm, he had a welder, and I remember making a go-kart. So putting the components in and welding it together with my 2 brothers. That was really good. And did all the kids play on the go-kart? Yeah, we'd always play together as a family, me and the brothers and sisters. We always had good fun on the farm, yeah. Oh, nice. And what about now? What skills do you have now? Well, the skills that I use now, I'm doing made-to-order carpentry. So furniture designs people will give me, and then I'll make those. So chairs, dining room tables, beds, drawers, rocking chairs, those sorts of things. Wow. And I previously saw some of these things that you've made. Could you explain some of these for me? Well, one of my favourite areas to work on is in yachts. I'll show you. So there are 4 deaf staff in the factory out of about 70 altogether. I'm a carpenter and I work alongside another deaf guy, and there are 2 deaf guys that work with fiberglass boats. But back in 1988, there were 10 deaf staff out of 120 staff, and the boss just works so well with deaf people. I just love it there. And how do you communicate when you're working as a carpenter in a factory with hearing people? How does that work? Well, it's relatively easy in this context because there's not too much variety. We'll finish one boat interior, send that through to England, and then we'll start working on another boat with a different wood, but the interior design is pretty much the same. The first time is a bit of a struggle, but then you get to know the process by the second and third time, and that sort of process really suits deaf people. And what do you mean you use different types of wood? Well, some customers want teak or mahogany, kauri, oak. Yeah, they're pretty much the options. And so how would it work then? You're not in the boat itself. And so how do you know what you're making is going to fit the boat when you're not physically there? We have patterns that we use, and we lay that out on the wood and trace out the shapes and then cut these shapes out. And then it fits nicely into the boat when it arrives. And so you'll use a lot of measurement, well, lots of drawing from patterns, and we'll set up jigs as well, just to ensure that the shapes are copied as they should. And the next day, we can use the same jigs and patterns to make sure there's consistency there. It takes about 3 months to complete one boat interior. If you're doing a small project for home, like some drawers, that might only take a week. In a boat, there's lots of different parts to the process, which keeps it very interesting. Oh, you certainly do have a lot of skills, Peter. Now, I've seen this. This is lovely. How do you make this? Ah, yes. So this is like Māori weaving. So I've designed this. Fairly soon I'm going to be making a big TV cabinet. There'll be some cupboards, some drawers, maybe some shelves, and I'll have that at home. But I really like this design. And so you cut up the little pieces of wood and arrange them in this pattern. On the sides, I might have bigger squares, and then in the doors and the trim, maybe smaller squares. And I'll get a design that I like, and then I'll start making it. There's a lot of work to do this, though, isn't it? Yeah, well, there is, but it's worth doing it for something in your own home, I think. If it was for a customer, it would take a lot of time and be expensive, so it'd be up to them if they want to spend the money. And it looks like there's different layers to it. Well, actually, each individual square of wood, I have the grain facing one way, the next one faces a different way, and it alternates throughout, and that makes it look like it's weaving. That's lovely. It just looks so beautiful. And are there different types of wood used here? Or is it just one? Just the one type of wood? It's Rimu. Only one wood. Wow, it looks different. It looks like two different colours. So I thought there were two different woods. Well, that's because of the alternating grain pattern. If they were all facing the same way, it would look like the same wood. But alternating it, it makes the light reflect differently. Wow, so it's like a natural variation, is it? Yeah, it is. Wow, that's amazing. So I'll just visualize my designs and play with the concepts in my mind. That's the way I do things. Some people will use computers, but I'm not much of a computer guy, really. So I just love visualizing and explaining my concepts. You're old school, Peter. We value old school ways of doing things. I love old school stuff. I just feel like it's just so meaningful. And so this weaving pattern, so you have individual wooden squares, but how do you make it actually weave in and out? Well, it's not actually weaving in and out. It's just individual squares. And I have a tool that I use to make the rounded shape. I'll cut up all the different parts and place it in a pattern. When it looks good, I'll put glue on the base and then place these little squares in the appropriate pattern with the alternating grain. And then here it is. I think it looks really nice. And so, what about your own home? Do you do lots of renovations, like with your interior walls or kitchen, that sort of thing? Yeah, so we bought a 5 bedroom home, pretty big, but the kitchen was pretty ugly, and so decided to upgrade that, put in a new kitchen, and that's nice. So, what did you change with this new kitchen? Well, our drawers are nice and soft close, and our cupboards are bifolding. And so they lift up and leave an open space to access the cupboard nice and easily, and you don't risk hitting your head on the cupboards. Oh, wow. And that'd be really handy as well for your wife because she doesn't have to put up with banging cupboards everywhere. That's right, everything is soft close, and deaf people do make a lot of noise in the kitchen. Oh, for sure. I remember growing up, my mum would always come downstairs and say, Oi, Nadia, shush! After I was banging my cupboard, maybe making a midnight snack, she'd come downstairs, Oi, shush! But But yeah, that's lovely for your wife. She'd be able to sleep peacefully. No banging cupboards. That's right. And the older kitchen was a bit smaller, and the new design is a bit bigger, and it does look really good. And actually, now the new kitchen's 15 years old. So you're going to upgrade again, Peter? Well, we'll have to wait and see. And have you ever made those beautiful glass display cabinets that lots of houses seem to have with their valuable things inside? Have you made any of those? Yeah, I have. I've got an example to show you. So the customer gave me this design with the different angles and curves, and then things can be displayed in this. That just looks so unique and interesting. I've never seen anything quite like that. That's lovely. Do you have other things that you've made? So there was a customer who gave me an old chair and wanted 3 more chairs to match to make a set. And there was another customer who did the same thing, brought in an old chair and wanted 3 more to match the original. Oops. Wow. It's amazing how you do that. So it's really difficult to know which one's the original out of those 4, actually. Great job matching, eh? And what's your process for making sure that you can match an original like this? Well, I'll draw out the design and cut that out, make sure that it matches, and then I'll shape the timber, glue it, put it together, use sandpaper and planers to make it match. And if you see someone's piece of furniture, like a chair, would you know what kind of wood that is instantly? Well, sometimes if it's painted, you can't tell. And so scraping off the paint and then sniffing the timber, I can tell by the smell of the wood and also by the grain pattern as well. Oh, wow. And so you can go into any house and see maybe someone's door frame and know what type of wood that is. Well, it depends if it's a New Zealand wood or if it's an import. If it's an import, I might not know. I'll know some of them, but some of them I don't know. Wow, what a skill that is. Yeah, my sense of smell really helps me identify different types of wood. And so, what do you mean by different smells? Well, each wood has its own unique smell. Some of them don't smell that good, and some smell really nice. My favourite is teak. Working on that in the yachts, just beautiful smell. Oh, wow. Well, actually, I have a deaf nose, so I can't smell anything. But it's interesting to hear. I never knew that each wood had its own unique smell. And so, what's your favourite wood? My favourite wood is rimu. And the reason for that is it just has such a lovely brown colour and a really nice grain pattern. So this is rimu, isn't it? Yeah, this is rimu with a lovely grain pattern. But when you're working with it, sanding it and cutting it, the smell isn't so good. It's quite a strong smell. Not so nice to smell, but it looks lovely. Okay, so teak has a better smell than rimu. Yeah, it does actually. I'll show you a photo of some teak. So, teak. It smells lovely when you're working on it. But then the grain pattern is all right. It's quite straight and parallel, but Rimu is more organic and flowing. That's interesting. So they're kind of like they're the opposite. One looks okay but smells lovely, and the other one looks great but doesn't smell so good. How interesting. Yeah. Some people love Cody, and other customers prefer oak. But I am a Rimu guy. I'm actually called Mr. Remu sometimes, and that's part of my email address, Mr. Remu. Oh, that's nice. And so is Remu pretty easy to work with? Well, it is a hardwood. Heart Remu is a very hard wood. This here is more halfway. That's called colour Remu. And then there's another type, opal Remu, which is quite plain. It's good for drawer boxes, that sort of thing. But the front of the drawer needs to look nice. Heart Remu is very rich colour. Oh, wow. Yeah, so it is quite hard to work with. And so nowadays, some of this wood is quite hard to get hold of. Yeah, so Remu isn't cut down very much anymore. It still is a little bit, but Cody here in New Zealand is not allowed to be cut down at all. If one falls over, then maybe it's okay to use, I'm not sure. But New Zealand made Cody furniture. They're now starting to use imported Cody from Fiji in the Pacific. It looks very similar to the New Zealand Cody, but it's a little bit of a softer wood. And the New Zealand Cody is kind of a bit more of a medium firm type of wood. Oh, wow, it's really interesting to know that there's different wood throughout the world. It's not all the same. That's right, it's quite different. Okay, and so New Zealand Cody and overseas Cody is quite different. Well, it's only found in the Pacific Islands, but it's imported here. It's a bit cheaper, actually. They can cut it down there. What about, are there other varieties of Remu overseas? No, Remu's native to New Zealand. Wow, you know so much about trees and wood. So you mentioned heart Remu. So what's the difference between colour Remu and heart Remu? Oh yeah, I'll explain. So if you think about cutting a tree down and then you look at the stump from above, you can see the outer layer is a lighter colour. And that's not such a nice colour. And then the next layer in is called colour Remu. And that's very popular in making furniture. And then right in the centre is what they call heart Remu. And that's a bit of a darker colour, very expensive to buy. And it's used in furniture making sometimes, but it's mostly that middle layer that's used. The outer layer is good for drawer boxes, that sort of thing. And so you talk about looking at the stump. You're talking about the inside of the tree, aren't you? Yes, I was just going to use the glass to show you actually. So if you think of cutting a tree down and looking down at the stump, you can see the different rings. So one ring actually signifies 1 year of growth. So each little ring signifies 1 year. Wow. And so you can tell how old a tree is. Yeah, if you cut it down and count the rings, a large tree might be 150 years or more. But you know, pine trees, they grow very fast. So they might be 25 years old when they're cut down. And you can see the rings are very thick and pronounced. There might be 25 rings, so it'll be 25 years old. But in a Remu, the rings are very close together just because it's so slow growing. Very similar to a Cody tree. A big Cody tree, if you cut it down and count the rings, you might find it's 1,000 or 2,000 years old. The rings are so close together, it's just very slow growing. Wow, it's amazing you can find out how old a tree is. But if you just see it in the forest, you won't know. You'll have to cut it down to find out. That's right. You have to cut it down and then count the number of rings, and that'll tell you. Wow. And have you had experience cutting trees down and then seeing these stumps? Well, sometimes I'll come across a tree that someone else has cut down and I'll look at the stump and count the rings. I learned that from a young age. I was told that that's how you can age a tree, by counting the rings. Is that something that I've learned? And so just going back a wee way, how old were you when you first started into all of this? Carpentry and learning about wood. How old were you when that first started? Yeah, I was quite young. It would have been before I was 10 years old on the farm. the first thing I made was the same thing again and again. I made little birdhouses with a hole in the front. Oh, you were 10 when you made them? Yeah. And I would put them on the fence posts in the farm, and I'd watch birds nest and lay eggs, and that was really nice. And then in school, in Form 1, I did woodwork there, and I was taught how to make different things with wood. And it was explained to me about how to age a tree with the rings and about different types of wood. And I just developed my knowledge from there. Wow. And so was it your mother and father that taught you these things, or did you just kind of learn it yourself, or how did that work? Yeah, my father taught me a lot, and I learned a lot at school. And I suppose I also was just very observant and learned lots of things that way. I'd find out about different bits of wood and furniture, see what type of wood that was made from, and I just learned it and developed a passion for wood that way. So you've learnt from your father, and you also went to school. Were you at a deaf school or a hearing school? I was at a deaf school at Kelston, Deaf Education Centre. The teachers' names were Mr. Phil Thompson and also Mr. Les Berry. Okay, and were you taught in sign language? No, we had to speak. We didn't really sign very much. A little bit of pointing and gesturing. And did you read books? Well, books with pictures and a few words, but not really novels. Okay, so you mostly just learnt on your own. I mean, I would ask a lot of questions. I would say, what's this? Why is it like this? Is this how you glue and put wood together? Is this right? Am I hammering this right? Am I sanding this correctly? Is this the way you oil? And then it would be explained to me. If I didn't ask, then I wouldn't have heard so much and I wouldn't have learned as much. But the more you ask, the more you learn. And if someone's explaining something and you say, no, I already know this, you're not going to learn as much. So it's better to not have that attitude, but listen. And that way you'll grow more knowledge and learn more quickly. Yeah, so it was kind of a balance, a little bit of yourself and the teacher working together. Nice. Yeah, and when I finished school, I went back to my father's farm for 6 years. And then after that, I moved to Auckland when I was 22. And when I left school, I didn't really meet deaf people. I went back on the farm. I didn't really know about the deaf community or the deaf club until a friend of mine had a 21st birthday and invited me along. And that was here in Auckland. And I thought there might be 2 or 3 deaf people there, but there was a whole heap of deaf people. And I thought, oh, wow, there's a party at the deaf club. There's a deaf community. I told my parents, actually, there's a deaf club and a deaf community. So they helped me find a job. So at 22, I moved to Auckland. And then I was socialising. I was using old-fashioned signs back then, and people thought it was fascinating, and they had much newer signs. But I slowly picked that up. We're always learning every day, aren't we, Peter? Well, thank you for telling us your story, Peter. It's been beautiful and lovely to see all the woodwork and carpentry and the skills that you have, the boat building and the stories of your upbringing and stories from work and everything. Thank you so much. It's been brilliant. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I hope you're enjoying this series.